Get ready to hear the truth about America. A news show that isn't allergic to the facts. The Bold Conservative. And now, here is your host, James Ledbetter.
All right. Good morning to all my bold conservatives out there. We have a show for you today. First, I want to talk about how ANTIFA has taken over Portland, Oregon, and Ted Cruz has called for an investigation into the mayor and the police chief for allowing Andy Now to be attacked in the streets of Portland, Oregon, and nobody has done anything about it. And then I want to talk about how the Democratic Party has become a religious cult. In other words, it's do as they say, not as they do. And if you don't agree with what they say, you are labeled a racist and all of that. But first, I want to talk about how you can donate to our podcast to keep us rolling, because it takes money to get these podcasts out. It takes money to edit and all of that. And you can do so by donating to our PayPal page, or you can donate to our Patreon page. The links are in the description. I thank you. Now, on with the news. So basically what we have here is ANTIFA. The police said they received reports of milkshake cups filled with quick dry cement being thrown at people. Pepper spray was also being used by cops and demonstrators. Protesters also turned on cops, launching water bottles and eggs at officers. Now, as you all may know, and some of you may not know, but quick drying cement has chemicals in it that heats up the cement and enables it to dry quicker. So that's why they call it quick drying cement. Now, the chemicals in quick drying cement will burn your skin. So it's just like putting acid within the milkshake, and it dries quickly, and you won't feel the burn until later on when you, like if some falls in your shoe or in your shirt, you get home and take your shoes off or your shirt off, and you find out that you have chemical burns on your body. And that's the danger of this. And I believe that ANTIFA is use the quick drying cement method first just to see what they could get away with. But anyway, as you know, as skirmishes continued, cops declared the situation a civil disturbance and warned that any participants in the protest faced being arrested for unlawful assembly. There are hundreds of peaceful free speech events in the city in a given year that do not result in violence, Assistant Chief Chris Davis said in a statement. However, unfortunately, today some community members and officers were injured. We are actively investigating these incidents to hold those responsible accountable. So, the news today is Senator Ted Cruz is calling for an investigation into the authorities of Portland, Oregon. He's calling for an investigation in the mayor and the police chief and the police force of Portland, Oregon, because they sat idly by and didn't do anything while this journalist was attacked. And if you get on YouTube and look up ANTIFA and all of that, you start seeing that in Portland, Oregon, Antifa has taken over. But here's a clip about Senator Ted Cruz calling for the investigation.
Cruz is now seeking legal action against the mayor in Portland, who's also the police commissioner, in the aftermath of this protest. William Janess picks up the story from there, live in L.A. with more now. William, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. The question being asked today, did the Portland mayor and police allow hundreds of left-wing protesters to attack a handful of conservatives on Saturday? In one incident, a group of masked men, as you saw, hospitalized a right-leaning blogger while police stood by. Demonstrators used pepper and bear spray. They threw quick-drying cement and raw eggs at a minority marching for, in their words, patriotism and prayer. So photos show cuts and bruises to Andy Ngo's face, prompting Senator Ted Cruz to claim liberal Democratic Mayor Ted Wheeler purposely allowed the attack. Quoting, "To federal law enforcement, investigate and bring action against the mayor who has, for political reasons, ordered his police officers to let citizens be attacked by domestic terrorists." The U.S. ambassador to Germany also tweeted, quoting, "This was a premeditated attack on someone because intolerant radicals don't like Andy, who happens to be gay, Asian, and conservative."
As you can see, it really needs to be done. It really needs to be done because a left-wing, a far-left cult like Antifa should not be allowed to take over the entire city. Like I was saying before, you can literally look up Antifa on YouTube and you can see instance after instance where they have taken over. They close down streets whenever they want to, and the police stand by and allow them to do it. Nobody stops them. Nobody says a word. And that's really disturbing, considering that Portland, Oregon police and the mayor do not have control of that city. And this is what I propose. I propose that the feds, which they are, the feds get involved, the federal government get involved and take back the city of Portland from these left-wing thugs. It is what they are. They're terrorists. They terrorize old people. They terrorize women. If you don't agree with what they agree with, they want to attack you. And they want to throw these milkshakes laced with quick-drying cement on you to inflict harm on you. And also, if you don't agree with them, they consider you a fascist, a racist, and all of that. And that's pretty much why the left wing defends Antifa. That's why the left wing media, I call them the alt-left media, that's why they defend Antifa, because they agree with exactly what they agree with. And they think that they should be allowed to silence people because they don't agree with what they agree with. And that's really sad. Where is the opposition in this country? That's what made this country great. If you didn't agree with something, you could voice your opinion and gather people that agreed with the same things you agreed with. And that's how laws were passed. That's how amendments were passed. And another thing that really disturbs me is how Antifa, no matter who you are, and see, Andy now, I guess I'm pronouncing his name right. He's gay and he's a minority, and they still attacked him. Why did they attack him? Because he's a conservative. I know I said in the past that he was a liberal or a leftist, and I didn't know much about it, but now I know, and I take that back. Reports say that he is a conservative. So if you're listening, Andy, I apologize for insulting you by calling you a leftist. But regardless whether he's a leftist or a conservative, it doesn't matter. He still has a right to do his job, and his job is journalism, to get down to the truth. And if we aren't allowed to do that these days, then what separates us from the rest of the country? What separates us from, I don't know, communist China? because that's exactly how communist China does things. If you oppose the government, you get in trouble. It's the same way in India. If a journalist writes and speaks against the Indian government, they are arrested right then and there, right on the spot. No questions asked. And that's what ANTIFA wants with the United States. We were set apart from the rest of the country, the rest of the countries of the world, to be right. And I believe this. God gives us the freedom to speak, gives us the freedom to choose, yet Antifa wants to take that away from you. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but Antifa seems to only attack weak, I don't want to call them weak, let's say they attack women, they attack children, and they attack elderly people and small people. What they do is they hear somebody speaking against what they believe in, and they start drawing a crowd, and they start surrounding the person, trying to get them away from the rest of the crowd. And once they get them away from the rest of the crowd, that's when they start attacking them and beating them and jumping on them. And there's usually like 10, 20 people involved in the mob. So that's nothing more than a lynch mob. So, but they claim that they are the arbiters of what is moral and what is right. What's moral and what's right is the freedom to speak. Our First Amendment gives us the freedom to speak and the freedom to say whatever is on our mind. Of course, you know, there are consequences to speaking your mind. You know, you have the Twitter mob and all that. But as far as attacking these people, that's really crazy. And here's the thing. They also only show up whenever conservatives are speaking or whenever there's a prayer group. Whenever there's a prayer group. As a matter of fact, that's what was going on when Andy was attacked, was a prayer group were getting together and they were praying for certain situations, for government, for the way the world has turned out. And all they were doing, they were praying. Well, that's when Antifa shows up. And that's when Antifa wants to start beating people up because they're praying, folks. That's all they were doing was praying. And they were walking through the streets, silently, peacefully protesting. And then there's never any fights. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's never any fights until Antifa shows up. And when Antifa shows up, that's when the fights start. And it's obvious and it's plain as day. If Portland, Oregon's not going to retake their city and start opposing law and order in their city, then that's when the federal government needs to step in. And that's what's happening. Is we're all outside looking in, and we're starting to see that the Portland police and the Portland mayor do not have control of their city. So we need to help them retake their city and start putting law and order back into the streets of Portland, Oregon. There shouldn't be any group with enough power to block streets. And I was watching one video where Antifa had blocked the main street there in Portland and started redirecting traffic into another direction. And this this elderly guy, I don't want to call him old, you're never old, but this elderly guy, he came through there and they were telling him he had to go the other way. And he asked them why. And the Antifa girl there, she said, because I said so. Well, who are you? Who are you to say so? Who are you to tell this man he can't go that other direction? And then this basement dweller, Antifa member, started insulting the guy. So the elderly man gets back in his car and he starts headed down the road, and they start chasing him and beating his car. And he got down the road and he pulled over and got out of his car, and they were talking about they were fixing to beat the beep out of him. And that should never happen in an American city. There shouldn't any group of people have enough power to treat people that way. So Antifa should be labeled a domestic terrorist group. I mean, plain and simple. You can't get any more terrorist than Antifa. I mean, Antifa is no different than the ISIS terrorist group. They're no different. And if they could get away with it, they would be doing exactly what ISIS was doing. Beheading people, taking over cities. They've already took over Portland, and they plan on taking over every city in America. And I'm not going to stand for it. As a taxpayer, I demand that the federal government retake Portland, Oregon. If they don't, then it's going to get worse and worse. And it's going to get to the point to where they're already attacking the police when the police try to stand up to them. I mean, that is a sure sign of terrorism. They have terrorized the city of Portland to the point to where the police stand down whenever they congregate. But we'll talk more about this after the break.
Hi, this is James Ledbetter, host of the Bold Conservative Podcast. We want you to go to our online store and check out our merchandise, because we have hats, caps, we have shirts, and we have mugs that will appeal to you, and each and every sale goes toward keeping and maintaining the podcast. You can get there by visiting www.theboldconservative.podbean.com and then head on up to the menu and click on Store. Also, you can find the link in the description. Thank you.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. All my bold conservatives. In the first half, we discussed how Antifa has taken over Portland, Oregon, and should be labeled a domestic terrorist organization, and the federal government should step in and retake Portland, Oregon, because obviously the mayor and the police chief aren't going to do it. Either they're scared or they just know that there's no way they can take over because they've let it go too far. Now I want to talk about how Tucker Carlson labeled the Democratic Party as a religious cult, and we have the clip. Run that clip.
But first tonight, after almost 200 years, the Democrats were a political party with conventional political goals. That's no longer true. The Democratic Party is now a religious cult, with all that implies. Dissent has been banned. Anyone who questions the party's leftward fringe is denounced as a racist heretic. The party has descended into a purity spiral, and nobody is safe, not even the party's own leaders.
Now, I don't know about you people, but I completely agree with Tucker Carlson. The left has gone so far left that the centralists in the left are now being attacked and labeled racist and sexist. As a matter of fact, if you watched the Democratic debates, the first debates, you notice that all of them were ganging up on Joe Biden. That's because Joe Biden was a centralist at one point in time, and he doesn't agree with most of this far left agenda that the rest of them have jumped on board with, so they all attacked him. He's now being labeled a racist, a bigot, a sexist, and whether or not Joe Biden is a racist and a sexist is up to you to decide. But I want to talk about how now they're attacking Nancy Pelosi. The three Congress freshmen, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and the other one there, they're all now labeling Nancy Pelosi as a sexist and a racist. Tlaib made a statement the other day, and I have that clip. Roll clip number 2.
More people like us, people of color, have been missing in the chamber because most of us, and Ayanna Pressley says it more beautifully, people that are closest to the pain need to be at the table making these decisions. Guess what? We know what it feels like to be dehumanized. We know what it feels like to be brown and black in this country.
What would you say to Nancy Pelosi? What would you say directly to Nancy Pelosi?
Uplift the women, especially the women of color within your caucus that are out there, because I'll tell you, more people like us, more people like me that come out to vote, we win. All of us win.
So give us power because of our skin color. That's Tlaib's argument. AOC made the same case during her Democratic primary campaign last year. But by definition, this is a racist pitch. I don't see why they can't see that. Basically, they want you to listen to them because they have darker skin than others. It's every bit as repugnant as a white candidate making the same appeal. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine Donald Trump saying, "Vote for me because I'm white"? We would never hear the end of it. The media, Congress, everybody would turn on Trump at the drop of a hat, just like that, because he wants you to, because that would be a racist statement. Now, apparently it's okay for the left to do this as long as they're not white. Even, and that's disgusting. But it's everywhere now. Democrats applaud it. Well, yesterday, former Obama spokesman Brian Fallon tweeted that AOC's faction provides the vision and moral center of today's Democratic Party. And she's spewing hatred and racism out of her mouth, just like Tlaib. And that's bad news for people like Joe Biden and Pelosi. Biden has dedicated his life to the Democratic Party. And so has Pelosi. Biden has dutifully moved left with his party over the years. He's currently running on free health care for illegal immigrants. But it's not enough. People like Joe Biden are the past. He's being denounced as a racist. It's over for Biden. A bitter end to what might have been a decent political career. Only he doesn't seem to know it. He has no clue that the rest of the Democratic Party has turned on him. Because here's the thing. In the beginning of the 2020 race for the Democrats, everybody was on Joe Biden's side. Everybody was saying that Joe Biden was going to be the front runner, and he came in the party as the front runner. And he don't see that the whole Democratic Party has pretty much turned on him. And then you have Eric Swalwell, who couldn't get enough points to even go any further than where he is now. So he dropped out of the race. They're calling him the failed Avenger. Swalwell marks the first of the Democrats, the 2020 hopefuls, to drop out of the 2020 race. But as far as the Democrats go, they have completely gone so far left that, like Biden now, they want free health care for illegal aliens. They want free stuff. They want to take away student loan, which a student loan is paid for by the taxpayers, by the government. All right, so a person gets a student loan to pay for their college. So if we let go of all that student debt, yes, sure, somebody's going to have to pay for it later on down the road, because the universities still have to be paid. The teachers still have to be paid. All of the programs still have to be paid for. And who's going to pay for all that? Well, we all paid for it one time. And this is the thing. We paid for it one time when the person got the student loan. So then now we have to pay for it yet again and double what we paid in the beginning as a taxpayer. So the taxpayers are the ones that's going to be hurt by this. And the economy, it seems like to me that the Democrats are trying their best to make the economy fail, because they know that we have a strong economy under President Trump. Regardless of what you say or what you hear, regardless of anything that you hear from CNN and MSNBC, whom give ex-President Obama the credit for the good economy. They claim that Trump jumped into an economy that was already growing, and that's not true at all. As soon as President Trump was elected, the economy started getting better. People started getting more jobs. The black unemployment is at an all-time low, and the Democrats can't stand this. Why? I don't know. As an American, you should want President Trump to succeed. But the religious cult that call themselves Democrats, they're against anything that Trump is for. Anything good that Trump is doing for the economy and the country, the Democrats join in unison to badmouth him and give all the credit to somebody else, to Obama. Another thing that the Democrats are doing is they're blaming all of the children being separated from their families and quote unquote children in cages. They're blaming all that on President Trump. President Trump is just following the laws that they made. So under Obama, children were being separated from their families. As a matter of fact, Obama used to brag about how he deported more people than any other president in the history of America. He bragged about it. He bragged about separating children from their families. He bragged about all of this. And most of the images that you see of children in cages were taken in 2014 and 2015 under, you guessed it, President Obama. But they still constantly blame everything on President Trump, like a cult, like a religious cult. A religious cult is defined as being a religious organization that you have to believe what they believe. You have to eat what they tell you to eat. You have to sleep when they tell you to sleep. You have to obey them to a T, or else there's consequences. And that's what the Democratic Party is doing. And you have the three Democrat freshmen who are taking the Democrat Party so far left that there's no way that they can return back to the center again. There's no way. And they're demanding that we open the borders and allow these people just to come in. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they came from, but we're just supposed to let them in. And in doing so, we don't know who comes over, who has diseases, We don't know who has what. We don't know who's done what. And the last I heard, and a couple of sources have told me, that ISIS and other terrorist organizations are starting to come through the southern border. And the Southern Command has confirmed this on many different occasions, that ISIS is infiltrating America through the southern border, disguised as these asylum seekers. And as you already know, most of these people that are claiming asylum, only 13% of these people actually are asylum seekers. So the rest of the people that are coming through aren't coming through to escape government persecution. They're only wanting to escape their country because they don't like the way the country is. And I can't blame them. America's great. America has always been great, and America is becoming greater again. Like Trump said, make America great again. He ran on that in 2015 and 16 and was elected because of that. And most of us agree. And the majority of the people agree. So all of this that you hear, Trump's approval ratings are skyrocketing, and the Democrats can't stand it. And then you have the left-wing pollsters starting their lies again in their polls. The same pollsters that actually said that Hillary Clinton was going to win the presidential election in 2016 actually said it, and they knew it, and they said it's going to happen, and she's going to win by a landslide. And what happened? President Trump won. That's why you had so many in the Democratic Party crying about it, because the pollsters lied to them. The alt-left media, CNN, MSNBC, lied to them. So now all of them, they're doing it again, and they're believing these polls like these polls are real. But, President Trump, you need to get out and you need to vote, because if this religious cult calling themselves the Democrats get back into power, America as we know it is doomed, folks. We have to keep power, and we have to keep them out of power. That means we have to retake the House. We have to keep the Senate, and we have to keep the White House. Period. And if we don't, America is no more. America will fall under Democratic rule. And that's true. But we're running out of time. I thank you all for listening, and I always thank each and every one of you each day. Thank you for listening, and tune in tomorrow, because we have an action-packed news day filled for you tomorrow. Stay tuned, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.